I'm about to make the biggest decision of my life, and that's choosing which college I want to play for. I'm a 7-foot tall running back, and as a 5-star recruit, I have more than 20 offers to choose from. However, I don't want to go somewhere where I won't see the field for years. On signing day, I narrowed it down to 3 schools, and my options were Hawaii, Notre Dame, and Stanford. Since I moved from the Netherlands, I had really enjoyed living in Hawaii, but with the recent explosions, I wanted to get out immediately. So I ended up choosing Notre Dame in a last-second decision, which meant I was stuck as a third-string running back. Luckily, head coach Marcus Freeman still found unique ways to get me on the field, and I was going to be Notre Dame's kick returner until I moved up the depth chart. I watched us barely beat Temple, and even though I got on the stat sheet, I wanted to actually play at some point during my freshman year. Fortunately, I was able to break off a couple of big runs at the beginning of practice, but college was so much harder than high school. I was getting destroyed from every single angle imaginable, so I had a lot of adjusting to do. The only good news was I had worked on catching passes a lot more, and if I were to succeed in doing something, it was that. By the end of the first practice, I hadn't done anything to stand out, so I had barely earned Marcus Freeman's trust, but at least I was a part of a top 5 team. The next week, I got to play at the Big House for the first time ever, and I couldn't have been more excited. Even though the only thing I'd get to do, barring injuries, was return kickoffs, it was still really cool to watch a top 10 matchup from the sidelines. In the end, we would end up losing by 3 points to the Wolverines, and I did not have a good practice after that. Everybody was angry, throwing the hardest hits that they could, and honestly, it made me a little scared. After that, I couldn't mentally snap out of it, so I had another week of terrible performances at practice. I was slipping all over the field in the rain, and all I wanted to do was move up from being a third-string running back. Despite being 7 feet tall, I still hadn't done anything that would impress Marcus Freeman because I legitimately couldn't stay on my feet in South Bend this week. Fortunately, I did break off a couple of runs where I fought my hardest to get extra yards, and that was the first time I got the nod of approval from my head coach, which felt good. He even let me run a jet sweep, which didn't go well, but I knew by the end of the year I could end up in a much better role as long as I continued to try my hardest and kept my focus on football. Even though Purdue was undefeated, they didn't give us any issues, and I put up my best stat line yet. If I was ever going to get good playing time, I would need to prove myself in practice first, so I put in the work. But it wouldn't seem to matter at all. Every time I did something good, it would get canceled out plays later because my offensive line couldn't block. In the end, I would never gain much coach trust, and I couldn't even afford an upgrade yet. So I would need to pull off a lucky kick return or something if I ever wanted to progress my career. Unfortunately, with my size, I wasn't exactly the right type of guy to make that happen, and I wished Marcus Freeman would just put me in to run the ball for once. He didn't even trust me to be one of the guys that recovers the onside kicks, and they clearly needed help. Even though we were able to continue winning, I wanted to prove to my family that I could be a starting running back. But it didn't seem like that would ever happen. Every time I would get close to breaking off my first touchdown run at practice, I couldn't quite do it, and there weren't even any holes for me to hit. I was probably averaging like 1 yard a carry, and when I tried to run with just a little bit of elusiveness, it was clear that I could not do that well at this height. The good thing was I hadn't lost my job at returning kickoffs yet, so I must be doing something correctly, and for the first time this season, I was finally able to break away from one tackle and stiff arm another guy before going down. It felt good to watch us win another game, and we were slowly climbing back to the top. I had my first chance to get a kick return for a touchdown on this play, but I didn't quite have the top end speed needed to outrun everybody on the field, and I realized that I probably won't ever score one of these. With a minute left in the first half, we were losing to Arizona State by 23, and I was hoping coach would put me out there on offense to see if I could help make a difference. Spoiler alert, he didn't, but I was actually rooting for as many kickoff returns as possible because they were the easiest way to build up coach trust. It was unconventional, but this is how I'd get my chance to move up the depth chart as I put up almost 150 return yards. However, practice ruined that immediately. I kept getting tackled for a loss, which I couldn't control most of the time, and I wanted to lose my mind at number 75. He made made it so I lost all of my coach trust, and it wasn't even my fault that it kept happening. I started our rivalry game off against USC and Caleb Williams with an amazing return, getting my team to almost the 40-yard line, but it seemed like my team's offense didn't do anything with that field positioning, so I got it back to the same spot for them. And with it now being 21-3 just midway through the second quarter, I realized that my team's offense stunk. One of the benefits of being so tall was I stole this kickoff return right out of the hands of my teammate, which ended up working out as I fought my hardest to get as many extra yards as possible. And then I finally had my big break. I needed to keep racking up return yards to get myself a chance at moving up the depth chart, and this return all the way past midfield would finally get me that opportunity. Even though we were going to lose to USC, all I cared about was getting touches as a running back, and after I got 171 returning yards, I had just enough of Marcus Freeman's trust. I was in my first position battle ever against sophomore running back Logan Diggs, and the rain was not helping at all. There were multiple plays where I didn't even get the ball, so it felt like I didn't have a real chance at actually winning this one. With just 2 reps left, it was obvious that it would take a miracle to pull this off, and since my last attempt went like this, I failed to become the second string halfback. So when we traveled to play at Air Force, I was stuck returning kicks with no other opportunities of seeing the field, and I was starting to wonder if I made the wrong decision in coming to Notre Dame. I had another opportunity to move up the depth chart the following week, and this time I was hitting the holes with a lot more speed, which was working out well. However, 75 got in my way like he always does, and then this defensive lineman somehow tackled me with his shin, so I wasn't on pace to win this position battle. On the last play, I couldn't even get to the line of scrimmage, and I continued to be a disappointment. On the bright side, I got to play in the snow for the first time ever, which was a really cool experience, but unfortunately it didn't lead to anything very impressive. We barely beat a 1-6 Navy team, and I simply couldn't get anything going on any of my kickoff returns. I kept getting chances to win a position battle against Logan Diggs, but like the rest of them, it didn't start well. My offensive line still couldn't block, and at my height, one bump would make me stumble over. This was simply embarrassing for me, and it was clear I didn't have what it took at this level. I couldn't even get a few yards per carry, and halfback screens were a disaster as well. After this, I felt completely defeated, and I realized that I'd probably have to transfer. I needed to somehow get solid running back experience, and returning kickoffs for a team I'd probably never play for wasn't my best option for that. I was trying my hardest to showcase my skills, but it was clear I'd have to be way better than this to play meaningful snaps. I actually had a good start to a position battle for the first time ever, and I was using my strength to get every last yard, which had to show Marcus Freeman I was determined. At this point, I would still consider staying at Notre Dame, but I would only do so if I felt like it was my best option at the end of the season. I always wanted the chance to be the main running back for a team, and I didn't feel like I was skilled enough to do that here. My plan was to stay in Hawaii until the volcanic explosion made me want to leave, so that was frustrating because I would have gotten great opportunities over there. Now I had to hope that I could increase my playing time here, or another school would actually want me, as I failed this for the 4th time. I saw a gap that I could hit in stride on the kickoff return, and I truly believe this would have gone to the house if I wasn't so tall and I had just a little bit more speed on me. Since I didn't though, I had to just keep trying to get my lucky breakaway moment. And on this opportunity, midway through the second quarter, I shattered multiple BYU players' ankles before I got pulled down. Evidently, one of them took that to heart as he laid me out the next time, and due to that, I wanted another chance to redeem myself, so I snatched this ball away from my shorter teammate and I took off. I wouldn't score here, but at least I'd get a solid 40 yards with ease, and even though my team would lose at home to BYU, I had a good time returning kickoffs in this game, as I totaled almost 200 yards. This was my 5th attempt to move up to running back 2 at Notre Dame, and there's a reason I kept failing. Not only did my offensive line seem to hate me, but I just wasn't great at running the ball. Additionally, Unfortunately, I still had an incredibly low football IQ, so I couldn't hit a hole if my life depended on it. However, I was proud that I pulled off my biggest run of the year. I noticed the outside was wide open, and I made sure I took advantage of that. These were the slow improvements that I'd have to make if I ever wanted my career to progress in college, and with just 4 reps left, I almost pulled off my first touchdown of the year, but I just didn't have enough speed to finish it. Luckily though, I had accumulated enough of Marcus Freeman's trust, and I finally moved up the depth chart. I got onto the field as a running back for the first time ever, and I even got to block on extra points. Marcus Freeman still let me return kickoffs as well, so I was getting to do a lot more, though I definitely needed to learn how to block because I simply couldn't take 2 guys at once.
Hold up, wait a minute.
After this kickoff return went almost nowhere because I didn't get the ball, I had my biggest opportunity yet as I got to run the ball for the first time, getting a solid 4-yard gain. But my success didn't last long as I dropped a much needed 3rd down conversion, so I'm just glad that we still got the win. I felt like I was actually a part of the team now, and that means I'll probably stay and avoid testing the transfer portal. I got to play in the Military Bowl to end my freshman year, and even though my team kinda underperformed expectation wise, I was just happy to be out there playing football in front of my family. They flew in from the Netherlands to watch me play, and unfortunately things weren't going well as we were losing to Army at the half. With less than 4 minutes left, we were down by 13, but we finally got into the end zone, so we still had a chance to win the game, and I got to be out there for part of it. I came up clutch for my team on 4th and 6 when I noticed nobody was on me, pulling in this incredible 24-yard gain, and I watched from the sidelines as we took a last-second lead. We somehow won the Military Bowl, and that would conclude my freshman year. I wasn't sure where I'd be playing next season, so let me know in the comments if I should stay at Notre Dame or transfer.